Good morning, Excellencies and delegates, and actually also mayors and city leaders. We are so happy to see that alongside ministers, we also see the flags of so many cities. Before I enter into my speech, let me remind you that what I will be delivering today is actually the work of over 35 experts from our region, which were selected by the Secretariat and dedicated voluntarily their time to provide information, their expertise and advice, which ultimately resulted in the draft commitments that you have been negotiating over the summer and you're expected to adopt today. So I hope to do justice to these experts that are here in the room. Across the UNECE region, we face a growing crisis of housing affordability and sustainability. Everybody is stressing this. Housing costs are rising faster than incomes, particularly in our cities. Many low and middle income households are overburdened by housing expenses. On average, households spend around 1/4, 25% of their disposable income on housing. But for those below the poverty line, the figure rises to 44% of the household income. In a few countries of the region, the share of housing costs even exceeds half of the household income. For instance, Iceland, 51%, Luxembourg, 62%. 1 in 3 low-income households, 33%, is pushed into poverty by housing expenses. The burden falls especially heavily on single persons households who spend on average 35% of their income on housing and almost half when below the poverty line, and single parents with children who spend more than 1/3 of their income on housing, around 40% when below the poverty line. Families with children and older persons are also disproportionately affected by this. This crisis is driven by stagnant income growth, rising housing prices, and escalating construction costs. People, families, newcomers, and first-time buyers face steep barriers to entering housing markets. Since 2007, declining ownership rates in 19 countries of the UNECE region, including Iceland, Ireland, Spain, Denmark, have deepened reliance on rental markets, where affordability pressures are more severe. At the same time, the financialization of housing, which means treating homes primarily as speculative assets, has amplified inequalities and weakened the social purpose of housing. Expanding public and non-profit housing is essential to restore access for those most in need. Beyond these challenges, a more specific and immediate pressure waits on cities. Vacancy rates have reached historic lows, exacerbating the housing scarcity. For instance, in Switzerland, only 1% of homes stand vacant. And in Zurich and Bern, short-term rental listings outnumber available homes by factors of 10 to 17. This is far from unique. From New York to Berlin, vacancy rates often hover between 0.1 and 2%. In tourist destinations such as Paris or Barcelona, rising housing demand coincides with tens of thousands of apartments diverted into the short-term rental market. The rapid expansion of platform-driven short-term rentals has added visible pressure to overstretched housing markets. Some cities, such as Berlin and Amsterdam, have moved to regulate this sector to protect the balance between homes for residents and homes for visitors. Yet, in many places, this balance remains unsettled. This is not only a market challenge. It is fundamentally about people. Every vacant unit counts. Rising rents combined with supply shortages deepen inequality and social exclusion. This is why clear data, fair regulation, and policies that distinguish casual sharing from large-scale commercial operations are urgently needed. Above all, the benefits of the sharing economy must never undermine our basic human right to accessible, affordable, and adequate housing for all. Sustainability adds another layer of challenge. Housing accounts for about 30% of both energy use and CO2 emissions in the UNECE region. Much of our housing stock is aging and inefficient. Retrofitting the existing housing stock often brings higher environmental and social returns than building new units in already dense cities. Yet, high upfront costs and funding gaps prevent municipalities and housing providers from acting at the needed scale. The social consequences are severe. Homelessness and inadequate housing persist even in high-income countries. Rising energy prices have deepened risk of energy poverty, with gas prices nearly quadrupling since 2010. Without targeted subsidies, energy-efficient measures risk placing even greater burdens on the most vulnerable. The risks of inaction are profound. The housing crisis cannot be solved in isolation. Housing is an economic issue, shaping financial stability, investment flows, and household balance sheets. It's a public health issue, as poor and overcrowded housing directly affects both physical and mental well-being. Housing is a social and demographic issue, undermining labor mobility, pushing families further from jobs, raising costs and emissions, and discouraging young people from starting independent lives and families. And housing is a climate issue, because retrofitting housing is one of the most effective tools to cut emissions. Without safeguards, however, efficiency measures can inadvertently worsen affordability. And housing is a political issue, because decisions on housing shape trust in institutions, intergenerational equity, and social stability. Housing also determines how our cities grow and how people move within them. Fragmented land governance undermines efficiency, while national strategies that empower municipalities and align incentives can help bridge that gap. Experts in our consultations were clear. Affordable housing is a lever for climate resilience, social equity, and sustainable urban development. We know what works. Integrated policy frameworks that link housing, climate, and energy. Active land policies that curb speculation, stabilize rents, and create steady pipelines of affordable housing. Transparent, disaggregated data, and interoperable information systems that enable targeted interventions and accountability. And above all, political prioritization and national measures that empower local delivery. Colleagues, we must act decisively. Integrated housing policies that combine affordability with sustainability are urgently needed. Our analysis and expert consultations point to clear priorities. Scale up energy efficiency retrofits, prioritizing retrofit-first approaches with targeted subsidies and affordable finance to protect vulnerable households from energy poverty. Expand affordable supply through public, cooperative, and non-profit housing. Examples include Austria's subsidized zoning, Slovakia's delivery of nearly 50,000 social dwellings, and Turkey's construction of 1.3 million units since 2003. Adopt active land policies to curb speculation and release vacant or underused property for social use. Develop national housing strategies with strong coordinating authorities to bridge the gap between national and municipal levels to remove regulatory bottlenecks. And invest in robust data ecosystem, open, interoperable, and disaggregated to design targeted policies, measure impact, and ensure accountability. Protect households with secure tenure, rent regulation, and safeguards against eviction, particularly during renovations or economic shocks. We should also strengthen international cooperation on housing finance and knowledge exchange. Excellencies, as we mark the 10th anniversary of the Geneva UN Charter on Sustainable Housing, let us reaffirm our shared commitment to its principles. Let us also recognize the urgencies of implementation. Affordable, sustainable housing can transform our cities into inclusive, resilient, and regenerative communities. At UNECE, we have analyzed data, consulted with experts, and supported the negotiations of the draft ministerial commitments on housing affordability and sustainability. Now is really your moment to change the course, to send a strong message by committing to improve the housing situation in our countries and through this in the UNECE region. The evidence is really clear. Without stronger public investment, coordinated governance, and political prioritization, the housing crisis will deepen and its social and health costs will multiply. The knowledge exists, the tool exists, the data confirm the urgency. Now the political momentum must follow, and hopefully it is today also with the adoption of the principles. Thank you so much.